welcome to Transform with Sitha for another podcast. Hope you are doing very well today. So today I just kind of wanted to talk more about my kind of what I would start talking about in my last podcast. I was more talking about the things I am taking into 2025. And the main thing I said I am doing, I'm stopping, I might not voiced it in this manner, but I'm stopping people pleasing. That's the way the wording is. But this podcast is called How to Stop People Pleasing. I had to, realize that I was a people pleaser. And I think I just thought at the time that I, didn't want conflict. I didn't want, people to feel uncomfortable. I wanted people to feel welcome. And in a way, I guess I was just kind of compensating for how maybe I felt about myself, and I just didn't want people to feel that way, or it could have been for other reasons. But I will start off the podcast explaining to you what people pleasers are. So don't feel triggered if you do feel like you're a people pleaser, or if you kind of relate to some of the things I'm talking about, because it can be a bit triggering hearing things about yourself like, oh my God, is that me? Like, oh, I don't like that. I think I had to come to the terms of dealing with the fact that I am a people pleaser. It's not a bad thing at all. I don't believe it's a bad thing, but it's also one of them things you do need to realize. You need to place boundaries with everything. If you're too much of something, it's unhealthy. Too much food becomes unhealthy, unhealthy in terms of your weights. You can create conditions, and then too little food, once again, can create health issues, etc. Everything in balance and everything in moderation. And that's how I see it now with being like a people pleaser or ex-people pleaser. I like to say it now. But a people pleaser is defined as someone that prioritizes others' needs over their own, often seeking approval and avoiding conflict. It does go on to say that the behavior can stem from fear of rejection or low self-esteem and can lead to burnout, resentment, and difficulty in setting healthy boundaries. I definitely can relate to a majority of all those things. I feel like my people pleasing kind of stemmed from seeking more than everything the fear of rejection, and I would maybe a little bit of seeking approval in a way, I guess. Yeah, I could say that actually. Just looking back at my childhood, I do feel like I had the fear of rejection because I felt growing up I was not criticized a lot, but in terms of just when you grow up in a family where they've got high standards, they want you to do well. And a lot is put on you at a young age. You do feel kind of the fear of like, oh, I don't want to disappoint. I don't want to do bad. I want to do well. I don't want to do bad and, make the family seem some way, stuff like that can end up as a young child. You end up putting on yourself. And in any way, I am not, saying any bad on my family, my parents or anything. Life is life, and I think we just learn from it. Love my parents. They did a great job. They did what they could do with the resources they had, and I'm appreciative, and because of them I turned out the way I am. So I am very grateful to my parents, and I love them dearly. So even though I'm saying these things, I'm not trying to put any blame on anyone else, but sometime in my brain, my little young mind, I got this that this equals this. So I thought, because I need to make sure that everyone's happy and, there's no conflict, and, I want to make sure everyone's okay. I want to be the person that, people can smile. I put it upon myself that I needed to please people in that walk. So that's what happened. I definitely will say that that stemmed from, I did end up having a low self-esteem through it as well. So I kind of, sometimes you get to a point where you are a people pleaser, and not everyone takes people pleasers on in a great way. Some people can use that in a way to just manipulate and take advantage. So in a way, you kind of get to a point of like, I can understand the burnout section, because you can do so much for everyone else, and then it feels like none of it is being reciprocated back to you. But I just wanted to put on a few points on how we can actually stop it rather than anything. We can always dwell on, being a people pleaser, and I think it's not the worst thing when done in balance, So the first thing is acknowledging the pattern, which I had to do. I had to acknowledge that I was a people pleaser. I didn't like conflict, which was very much me, still the same. Now I do not like conflict. I would rather not have conflict. I would not have an argument. I I would rather excuse that person's behavior for something else. I'd be like, they're having a bad day. They're not, they don't feel well. They might have just, woke up on the wrong side of the bed. It's fine. Let's move on. I was very much that kind of type of person, which I think is fine to do because people have lives and people do, have things going on in lives that they might not voice. But I think it's also knowing the balance between someone that's going through something real and someone who's just their character and their behavior is just very much rude and unapologetically mean and just not very nice. So the first thing is, where did your need for prioritizing others first come from? Like, did it come from when you were younger, which I kind of realized, yes, it was when I was younger. I definitely started it very quite young, wanting to make sure everything was peaceful, calm, and people were happy before myself. So the first thing is acknowledge the pattern. That's what I'm kind of just saying, like, what's the pattern in terms of also what makes you want to please people? Is it certain situations? Is it certain people? So just make sure you acknowledge the pattern. And then I should have said this, the second one is understand the root cause, which I just kind of said first. But yeah, I feel like understanding the root cause first is the main thing. Like, understand where it started from, and then acknowledge how the pattern is going. So you might have started when you were younger, in your teen years, when you got older, when something maybe traumatic happened, you started doing it, and then was it in specific situations, certain people you start people pleasing with, things like that. There's usually a pattern with being a people pleaser. For me, I'd say it's just in general, like family wise, I'd say. But even outside of family, I think I was definitely much a people pleaser in terms of just wanting peace. I wanted the peace. If I could stop an argument, great. And also just in terms of making sure like other people were happy. And I think it was compensated for the fact I didn't feel happy. So I thought if I could make someone happy, then at least that gave me joy. I don't know, but that's how my young mind thought of it. In terms of the root cause, I guess in a way you could look at it as being like, is it a fear of rejection or is it for approval? Why we do that? Is it because we grew up in an environment where you just felt like it was a perfectionist environment where you had to make sure everything was correct, everything was right. So you got to a place where you just had to, please people, or you just fear of just kind of, you wanted to be approved. You might have grown up in an environment where you felt like the odd one out and you needed to kind of feel approval. So you'd, do what needed to be done so then you could be part of the friend group or part of the that environment. So things like that are very much good to understand. And then next, after you've done those two things, definitely go on to setting clear boundaries for yourself. Practice just saying no. Like, the first thing is just saying no to something that you don't feel comfortable with, something that might not align with you, that someone might be like, let's do this, and you're like, I don't really feel like I want to do that. Say no. Don't feel any way about it. Don't try and explain it to yourself or explain it to the person, because I used to do that a lot in terms of like over explain, so then I felt like justified, so then I could feel justified in why I said no, and then also kind of let the person know that, I did want to do it, but just make sure you understand that I couldn't because of this. So once again, that was very much people pleasing, because I wasn't even saying no. I felt like everyone is owed an explanation. Not everyone's owed an explanation for your no. If you don't want to do something, say no. And if they say, why, I don't feel it, and then they keep digging, just be like, that's my explanation, please accept my no and how I feel about it. That's how I feel. So practice saying no without an explanation specifically, because I've realized as a people pleaser, I used to do too much over explaining. So that's another thing to go to. So step 4 is basically prioritize your needs. Push everyone else's needs aside for a little while, or in a specific hour of the day or evening, or just for some time. Prioritize yourself first. So that could be just having time away. If you've got kids or family, having some time away for a day, even a spa day, having an evening, just being like, could someone babysit for me? I'm just gonna have some time alone. Pour into yourself, love on yourself, enjoy your own company. That's one thing I learned in 2024, enjoying my own company. Like, no one could say nothing to me now. Like, I'm literally like, love my own company. And I'm a twin, so I grew up not knowing what my own company was, because I shared a bedroom for 20 odd years with my sister. So let's just say quality time with myself wasn't something I was used to or normalized. So for me now, growing up and just kind of realizing, I'm my own person, and I think that's another thing, having a twin might have been also another thing that added to it, in terms of just having that kind of comparison thing too, that could have added to it, who knows. But definitely that's one thing I've had to prioritize this year: being by myself, enjoying my own company, going on spa days, having, days where I can just go on walks in the morning by myself, be in my own thoughts, not be afraid to be with myself. And I think a lot of us are scared to be by ourselves and be in our own thoughts. I think we're scared to feel something or things to rise up that we'd feel uncomfortable with, and we don't want to really deal with it. And that's fine. I was in a place like that for years, not wanting to deal with things, just kind of pushing them to the side and pressing them down, and trying to be busy to make sure that didn't come up. But now I'm in a place where I do want to heal, I want to grow, I want to, get to a place where if something does come up, I want to, capture it there and then, be like, why am I feeling this? Why am I thinking like this? Has something happened? Do I need to go back into my space, my quiet place, and just think about this, pray about this? Things like that is just so good for my own growth, but for those around me as well. So the next thing, number 5, build your confidence, build your self-esteem. Those things that I've just said, in terms of spending time with yourself, you'll realize that it will naturally help you build your own confidence, because once you get to a place of just loving on yourself, knowing who you are, that's one thing I did say in the previous podcast, knowing yourself to a state where you're unmovable, you're unshakable, you know your boundaries, you know your wants and needs and desires, and no one can tell you otherwise, and no one can manipulate or try to change your mind on it. That is the best feeling that you could be at, because you're so confident that you can say what you think in a kind, respectful manner, and still continue to, be someone that helps people, that assists people, but you're not in a people-pleasing way that it's detrimental to yourself and is toxic, or, becomes toxic if it's done too much. So you can still be someone that cares for other people dearly, but it's about having those boundaries set in place as well. So make sure you build that confidence. That's, even like I said, building confidence is a thing that can take a bit of time. I don't think it's something that can happen overnight, but it's definitely one of them things. Taking care of yourself emotionally, spiritually, and physically has allowed me to build my confidence as well. Just knowing that I have enough respect for myself. There's one I heard somewhere when someone was like, I should be able to show up for myself more than anyone else. Other people are kind of an option, but for myself, I should be showing up every single time. So if I say to myself, I'm going to work out today, I better be doing it. If I say I'm going to be eating healthy today, I'm going to be doing it, because I'm accountable to me, and I'm the most important person for myself and for everyone else, because there's no point you showing up for everyone else but forgetting yourself at the detriment of yourself as well. So remember that you need to show up for yourself more than anyone else. Everyone else is an option, but you're not an option. You need to show up for yourself countlessly all the time. So if that's you, that's self-care time with yourself. That's, reading your Bible, having quiet time, spending time with family, and just prioritizing yourself rather than work. And all these things are very important. So number 6 is face discomfort. Face the discomfort of saying no. Face the discomfort of having to say no to people and not explain to them. And people are kind of, especially in the first few days when you're doing it, people are kind of like, you've changed, and that's fine. That's not a bad thing. Don't see it as a bad thing to be like changing. And some people might not like that, because they see that you're growing, you're changing, you're becoming confident, you're actually able to have your own voice and speak up. You know your desires, your wants, your needs. You're setting those boundaries in place. Don't feel guilty. You may feel guilty at the time, you may feel anxious as well, but don't allow this to stop you in your tracks. Rather than stopping you in your tracks, just see it as a confirmation that you're growing, because eventually the more you do it, you're going to get to a place where you will one day say no, and you won't feel that sinking feeling in your stomach, or that, anxiety, like your heart tightening and feeling like, oh no, I shouldn't have said that. I can see that this person looks displeased. Don't allow that to change your mindset. Just keep going with it, and one day you'll just be like, no, and it's fine. And funnily enough, people respect people that have boundaries. Like, I used to think, being a people pleaser was great, it's amazing, which it's not a bad thing at all. Like I always say, it just depends on how much you're doing it. But I think more people have respect for people that say no and say what they need to say. They say what they require. They're not, apologetic about it. They say it in a kind manner, in a respectful manner, but they keep it moving. People prefer that rather than someone, because it gives off, even though it might be triggering to someone, and it was triggering to me, but it gives off victim, or just kind of victim vibes, in terms of when you have that kind of like, oh no, it's almost apologetic, constantly being apologetic for just being yourself. And I feel like I was that way inclined. I was very much kind of apologetic for being just me, being almost like, oh, I don't want to do that, and being like, sorry. And I had to, that's one thing I'm trying to learn, not to say sorry all the time, because I'm always apologetic. And for what? I shouldn't be apologetic for just being myself. At the end of the day, this is me. If you don't like it, leave it or lump it, as we say. It's one of them things that I've had to kind of learn, and maybe just growing up in a British society where we're very much apologetic anyway. Like in a given day, when you go out in public transport, you will hear sorry a dozen times. And it's not even like sorry in a bad way. It could be just like, oh, excuse me, sorry, kind of thing of like, you're in a queue, you're trying to get somewhere, or someone's in your way, excuse me, sorry. You literally will say it numerous times. And maybe it's just the also environment that I have grown up in, that's also, but then it's also been amplified by my people pleasing and my childhood, which can create this catalyst. So yeah, you will grow to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. So faith and comfortability when you are saying no, and you are kind of being more confident, because once you practice it long enough, you get to a place where you're like, I have conquered this now. I'm fine. I don't need to be anxious anymore or feel some way about it. But the first few times, I will be honest, it might feel very uncomfortable, but it's okay to be uncomfortable for a bit, because once you get to the other side, you'll forget about even how uncomfortable it used to be. It will just become a natural thing that you do. And the last thing but not least, surround yourself with supportive people. So surround yourself with people who respect you, who respect your boundaries and encourage you to grow. That's the main thing for me. Is always now for me is making sure I have boundaries. For too long I didn't have boundaries, and I thought that was fine, but no, if you don't have boundaries, you'll fall for anything, and other people will maybe talk you into things that you necessarily don't always believe in, or don't align with your own beliefs and desires. So have the boundaries in place. And that's why I say to yourself, know yourself so much and in depth that you're movable. No one can come to you and be like, we're doing this today, and you're like, no, I don't like to do that. And the person can be like, oh, but you used to do it. It's like, no, I'm not doing that because I don't want to do it. And like I said, in a direct manner, but still kind. You still have to, I do believe being firm, especially with someone that might be more difficult, is very good. And that's something that you learn in time, where you can say something in a manner that is direct, but still firm, but still kind. In all those three aspects, you can still say it in a way that's still loving, kind, but firm enough that the person understands this is a firm no, and not just a jokey, no, I'm all right, okay, I can take it or leave it. It's like, no, this is a do not take it kind of situation. Especially when you're younger and you have friends, and it can feel like peer pressure in terms of certain situations where they might want you to go somewhere, do certain things. You have to know yourself in a way that, in terms of just where your boundaries lie, because people can talk people into so many things. I've heard so many stories where people were like, my friend just said to do this one thing, and my life changed. Well, that was mostly, sometimes it's for the not good, but when it's for the good, it's great, because when you have friends like that can kind of push you but no understand your boundaries, that is a good thing. When you have friends where you kind of maybe shy, but they want to get you out and about and be like, let's try this new activity, it'll be good for you. That is, good, in a good way of having kind of someone that's supportive, pushing you. They understand your boundaries, but they know that you could do more. So get to a place where you do know yourself, and you surround yourself with friends, family, colleagues that can help you in that journey. Because I know at times it can be triggering when people are like, oh, I feel like people pleasing term has almost like a negative term. But I had to find a place of kind of being accepting that it's not a bad term. It's just with everything there's a balance, and with anything you need to have a balance, have boundaries set in place, because two extremes are never good. It becomes toxic, it becomes unhealthy. So what you need to just kind of learn is the balance of being a people pleaser, being a balance of yes, I can help people, support people, want the best for people, provide my services, my help, but there's a boundary where if I'm getting depleted and getting to a point of just burnout and feeling resentful, then I maybe need to start reevaluating how I'm helping and supporting people, and I need some time away by myself just to recoup and get myself back to pouring into me, loving myself, and prioritizing me again. So I hope, guys, this has been helpful on your journey. If you are someone that's recognize that you're a people pleaser and you want to kind of reduce or stop that, these are the 7 things that I've kind of implemented in my life to kind of stop myself from doing that. In terms of surrounding myself with people that support me, for me it's been my twin sister, because I feel like we've been on the same journey. So I feel like we've both got to a point where we're we're changing, and in that way we're supporting each other, because she can tell me something at times and I'll be like, no, I don't think that's right, because I don't think this person's respecting your boundaries. And I will tell her, and then she will reflect on that and be like, you know what, you're right. In this point in time and point, I'm very much not thinking about my own needs and my own priorities. So you know what, I think I'm gonna rethink this situation and go back and let them know, and stuff like that. That helps me out a lot. When I do that to her, she does the same to me. So just kind of having an accountability partner is always helpful. So I hope these things have helped you guys. I didn't really dive deep into my childhood and stuff, but came from my parents are African immigrants that came, worked hard, did well, basically taught me to work hard and do well. And as the child of immigrant parents, coming to a new country, you have that hustle mentality, that work hard mentality. And maybe that also has something to do with how I became a people pleaser. Definitely, different aspects of life and different, living. And it could be also, I was a young child coming into a new country. I just wanted to be accepted. Most likely, yes, that too. I just kind of thought, let me do this, let me be a people pleaser. Certainly a lot of things, it's never a linear thing, and I definitely think all the concepts from when I told you what people pleasing is, definitely all coincide, because I hate conflict. I didn't have great self-esteem. I didn't think that I did it for approval, but now looking back and reflecting even more, I'm seeing most likely, it was for approval as well. Also, I guess for to not have the fear of rejection as well in a new environment. All these things just always kind of link together in some way, because you can always think oh no, I'm only a people pleaser because I like people, I like to help people. And then you dive deeper, and that's what I used to tell myself all the time, I just like to help people, it's fine. And then you dive deeper and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, there's more to it. So definitely one to think about, guys, in this new year. I am wishing you all the very best, giving you all the encouragement that I can give you if you are on this journey. If you do have any questions, do contact me via email or any other socials on here. But thank you so much for joining me today on this podcast. I've been Sitha.T, and join me on the next one, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.